another beautiful day in Seattle. And if you are thinking about moving to the Seattle area, but you just don't know where to start, this video is for you. This is answering the question, what we need to think about when we're moving to the Seattle area. It's an orientation, it's an overview. We're going to dive into some really important things about where you're going to work, where you're going to live, and what it's going to be like when you get here. So stay tuned. I'm going to take you through the whole thing. So if it's your first time on my channel, welcome, welcome. I'm Emily Cressey. I am a Seattle native and a real estate agent in the area. So I love helping people find just the right property for them when they move to Seattle. That being said, there are some caveats, some changes, some things that I don't like about the area. It's changed a lot in the last 40 years, and I'm going to be really honest with you as we dive into this video and kind of get oriented on what's happening in the Seattle area, whether it makes sense for you to move here, maybe not the Seattle proper, but someplace else, or maybe you just don't want to come at all. So I'm going to tell it how it is. Buckle up. We're going to go into the hot and heavy pretty quick here. So I'm sharing my screen just to get us all oriented on what it means to live in Seattle, Washington. This is a huge metro city in the northwest corner of the United States. So as you can see by the little dot here, we're on the border with Canada. We are on the ocean, and we have lots of lakes, mountains, and water in the area. So it's a really beautiful area, and it's a big city. If you look up the population of Seattle, the city of Seattle itself, it's only about 700,000, but we have, I would say, 3 to 4 million in the greater Seattle area, depending on where you draw those lines. So this is considered a big city, a large metro. It has those downtown skyscrapers that we all love. And so I just want to make sure, sometimes when you're coming from out of state, it's all just a blur. So I'm zooming in now on Washington state itself. We share a border with Idaho and Oregon along the Columbia River to the south, as well as Canada to the north. Now, Seattle is where these little stars are here on what's called the Puget Sound. This is salt water, and it's protected by the Olympic Peninsula here. So boats from China and other places are coming in through our waterways, and we have a large international port here in Seattle. The Port of Seattle, we also have a Port of Tacoma, is the largest employer in the area, just because there's so much industry related to this ocean and shipping business. That being said, we have a very diverse economy. We have a huge technology presence. Bill Gates built Microsoft out here. Jeff Bezos built Amazon out here. We have Blue Origin now. We have Facebook. We have Google. We have a lot of tech people. We also have hospitals, the University of Washington, law firms, all sorts of different businesses. It's a very large and diverse economy. Now I'm zooming in again, and what we see in the Seattle area is this is Seattle, where it says the words Seattle. This is where we think of as downtown Seattle, with the skyscrapers, with the Space Needle, all the touristy stuff that people love when they come to visit. Whether or not you want to live in downtown Seattle is another question. To the north, I would say kind of the suburban areas are these gray areas. So these are all areas that are developed, fairly high population density, and fairly good commuting access. Once you get to about Everett or Marysville, it's going to be a little bit harder to drive all the way into Seattle in heavy traffic. It's going to take upwards of an hour. Same thing if you're down here in Kent, Federal Way. In good traffic, it's a half an hour drive, pop up here on the freeway, no problem. But in heavy commuter style traffic, it could take longer than that. So depending on when and how often you plan to drive into Seattle, those are kind of your northern and southern boundary points. Tacoma is another large city, considered a pretty separate metro. Some people who might live in Kent or Federal Way could easily commute to both. Everett is a large, well, it's a separate metro. A lot of people work here because there's a Boeing airplane manufacturing facility here, and there's also a small airport. So a lot of people might need to commute to Seattle, Everett, or Bellevue. Bellevue isn't even pictured, but it's kind of the twin city of Seattle. It's right across the lake. This large body of water in the middle is called Lake Washington. That is a big geographic milestone here. So essentially what the lake does is cut Seattle into just this little skinny area with water on both sides. So we tend to have pretty long commutes because we don't have a lot of side-by-side options. We only have north-south options. To solve that, they built two bridges, the 520 floating bridge, which is a toll bridge, and the I-90 bridge, which goes across Mercer Island. And on the other side of these bridges is where downtown Bellevue is. It does have its own skyscraper downtown, but it falls off pretty rapidly into residential areas with houses and that type of thing. It's not a huge downtown area. That being said, Bellevue is actually having a lot more growth in terms of business growth, residential growth. The whole east side of the lake away from Seattle, not within the Seattle city limits, has gotten very popular over the last couple of years. Downtown Seattle has really struggled with its own homelessness population, drug use, crime, indigence. It's just it's become, the pendulum has swung in such a way that it's become undesirable for a lot of people to live there. That was accelerated by COVID when a lot of people stopped working there. So, you know, people around here kind of joke that it was the zombie apocalypse, and, you know, the food trucks went away, the zillions of Amazon employees went away. Like, a lot of people were just working from home, and there weren't a lot of people keeping the productive lifeblood of downtown Seattle really pumping. So that kind of accelerated the decline. And we have a new mayor, and hopefully things will be getting cleaned up there. But Seattle's also been a little hard on businesses, threatening Amazon and other large employers with large taxes, headcount taxes, and that type of a thing, which has made Amazon then threaten to leave the Seattle city and go, you know, build more offices over here in Bellevue. So what I'm seeing with a lot of these tech companies is that rather than having one giant enclave of offices in downtown Seattle, they're kind of diversifying with several locations around the lake. Google, for example, has an office here in the South Lake Union area. This little opening, if I'm pointing with my mouse, I don't know if you can see it, that's Lake Union. And South Lake Union is where a lot of the tech folks are. So Google has a new office here. They also have an office up here in Wallingford, and I believe they have one over here in Kirkland. So there have been, you know, Bellevue, a lot of the companies will have an office in Bellevue. So if you are moving to the area for a job like that, you might want to see which office is going to be your home base, because that could affect not only where you're working, but also where you choose to live. Now, as you're considering your commute, remember that we are putting in a light rail system as we speak. This is the public transportation system, and at the moment, it goes from the airport, which is down here by SeaTac, all the way up into Seattle. It pretty much follows I-5. It goes up to the University of Washington area, which is right here on Lake Washington, and up to Northgate Mall. This is by my office. So that's the termination of the track at this point, and they're currently working on the next leg, which will go up here to Linwood. They're also working on crossing the lake to go east to Bellevue and to go further south to Tacoma. Right now, there's actually a train, not the light rail, but a good old fashioned, coal train type of thing. It's called the Sounder, and that takes folks from Edmonds. It follows the water down to downtown Seattle and then down to Tacoma. So there is a train commuter option that not very many people use. It runs a couple times in the morning and a couple times in the evening. It could be a good option if you're trying to get to one of its stops. It just doesn't make as many stops. We also have great bus transportation service, and that's what we've used for years for my husband going downtown to work. And when I had my real estate office downtown, I went there as well on the bus frequently. I would say it's becoming a little less convenient as they make you transfer now onto the light rail. So if you were starting up here in Linwood, it used to be that you could get a direct ride all the way down to Seattle. Now they're going to take you from Linwood here to Northgate and put you on the light rail, and then you need to ride the light rail all the way down to Seattle. Now, the light rail has been slow to be adopted, in part because of COVID. Not very many people were actually riding on the light rail when it opened, and then they were having trouble enforcing the fares. So a lot of people were riding who hadn't paid. Maybe they were sleeping or spending a lot of time on there. There were concerns that it smelled bad, even though it was just opening. So if you're planning on using the light rail for your commute, just know that that is something to be aware of. Maybe check it out when you're visiting, or see what the options are for driving it. A lot of people prefer the hands-free option. You can work on your laptop, you can work on your phone, you could read a book and do something fun while you're commuting. And some people really prefer having a car, the flexibility that provides, knowing that once you get downtown, parking is going to be tight and expensive. You'll probably want to buy a spot, lease a spot. Monthly, it might be $200 or $300 a month, depending on the location and what kind of, are you in a parking garage or a parking lot? Are you right downtown? Are you on the outskirts? Those types of things. But there are parking lot options, but they're just not cheap. So when you're looking at buying a house in the Seattle area, median price homes are going to be, as of the time of this, everything is relative. It's always changing, right? We're at about $700,000 or $800,000 for the median price home on the Seattle side. And in some of these east side neighborhoods, I've seen the median go up to $1 million. Median means it's in the middle. If you stacked up all the homes and chose the one in the middle, that would be the median price point home. And that does include condominiums and townhouses, as well as single family homes. Now, depending on where you're coming from, that probably seems pretty expensive. Maybe there's coming from Hawaii or California or something like that. You're like, oh, that's no problem. But for most people, it's a bit of a shock, right? The cost of living seems like it's high. It keeps going up. So I'm going to point out what some of the luxury neighborhoods are, as well as what some of the more affordable neighborhoods are, so you can get an idea. It's all sort of a blur on the map, right? So what are we looking for? Where should you be looking for if you're trying to choose your home? Now, historically, getting close to downtown Seattle has been at a huge premium because of the long commute. So being close here was a really big deal. And the neighborhoods that fit the bill were down right here by the E. This is an area called Capitol Hill. You're up on the hill, you have great views of downtown Seattle. If you crest the hill and go over here, you have views of Lake Washington. Over here, we have Magnolia and Queen Anne hills, also hills, many of which do have good water views or city views. Over here, this is called West Seattle on this point. This is a more beachy, laid-back type of area. We do still have some nice water view property. You can go down and walk in sand along the beach, as opposed to cliffs and things over here. There's no beach here, except this green area is a beautiful, enormous park. It's called Discovery Park in Magnolia. You should definitely visit it if you're visiting Seattle to check that out. But West Seattle is more, I I would say artsy and eclectic. It has a beachy vibe. It has little shops and restaurants and beer gardens. You can go down here and walk along the beach and enjoy that beach vibe. I don't know what to say, like going on vacation kind of a thing, right? But over here is what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Port of Seattle. So we have cranes and barges and that type of a thing, loading and unloading some of these ships coming in from China. And we also have what's called the West Seattle Bridge, which is a main commuter bridge. It was closed for a while. It's reopened now, which is the main way to get in and out of the area. There's also surface streets, but it takes quite a while. What else? Fancy areas. You can take the freeway. I'm sorry, not the freeway, the ferry which is boat, right? You can walk on, you can bike on, motorcycle, bring your car, and go over here to Bainbridge Island, which is kind of a bedroom community. And some people commute this every day, and it's very easy. The ferry goes right into downtown Seattle. So depending on, you could just Uber from the ferry terminal to your office or that type of thing, bring an electric bike, ride the bus, etc. But this is considered a nice fancy area, especially here by the waterfront with some beautiful homes. Another really high-end area is over here, Mercer Island. The whole thing is fancy and expensive. And then up here in Bellevue, we have some really, probably some of the most expensive neighborhoods in the entire area, luxury homes. Bill Gates lives here, that type of a thing. Medina, Clyde Hill, Yarrow Point, Hunts Point, great commuter access to Bellevue, obviously. And you can also hop on and go over these bridges to downtown Seattle. Issaquah is an up-and-coming community, like formerly rural. It's kind of in the foothills of these mountains, so it does tend to get a little foggy and a little rain catchment here, but it's really great for going up to Snoqualmie Pass, where you can ski for cross-country skiing and snow parks and things like that. Up here, Snoqualmie Pass is one of the main places for skiing in the area. The other one is Stevens Pass. Highlighting too many things. Great hiking, very, very outdoorsy, right in your backyard here. You're going to get like bobcats in eating your chickens. You're going to have people with farms. You're going to have, so here in this area, you're going to have bobcats. You're going to have people with chickens. The chickens are getting eaten by the bobcats. You're going to have a few like older family farms and hobby farms and that type of thing, as well as like densely wooded mountain homes. There's a salmon stream in the area. They have a salmon festival every year. So a lot of fun is going on here in the Issaquah area. And again, that's kind of an up and coming expansion zone coming out of Bellevue. Sammamish, great area. Newcastle, Redmond, that's where Microsoft is. Kirkland, boating, waterfront, great kind of downtown area where you can see views of the water, walk along the water, go to restaurants, and enjoy being outside. So this whole area is definitely primo, as well as pretty much anywhere along the lake. Here by the University of Washington, other primo areas would be, there's a gated community here by the Arboretum called Broadmoor. There's Windermere and Laurelhurst, which are kind of private neighborhoods that were developed around the time that the baby boomers moved in around the University of Washington. My grandparents both worked at the University of Washington and lived here in the Windermere area. And again, anything along the water is going to be nice. The city of Seattle has some ups and downs, again, in terms of crime, homelessness, drug use, and managing those types of issues. Okay, so now I'm going to point out some more affordable areas, and this is based primarily on their proximity to what I would call more industrial or heavy manufacturing types of zones. So those are not as desirable and therefore tend to make property values a little bit more expensive. So out here, SeaTac Airport is a major employer, and it's a huge international airport. And it's also got Boeing airfield nearby. So Boeing makes airplanes. And so when we have a lot of air traffic coming and going, things taking off, that can create a fair bit of noise and industry, that type of thing. So this area here by SeaTac and a little bit into Renton, I'll zoom in so you can kind of see the neighborhoods a little bit better. So SeaTac, Burien, Tukwila, sort of the South Center, White Center type of area tends to be just a little bit more affordable housing types of areas. And then as you get into Kent and Maple Valley, Covington, it becomes a little bit more rural. So these are a lot of less expensive houses, again, urban city blocks type of here, and then more rural areas here down in Auburn and Federal Way. I've shown homes that had horses at them and stuff like that. So that tends to, right around here, you're going to cross over into Pierce County. You're kind of in the Tacoma zone at that point, and this tends not to be not many people commuting all the way from here to Seattle. Scrolling up to the north end, I would say Linwood, and this area has historically been fairly affordable, but is really coming online as they're building this light rail here. There's been a lot of construction, a lot of excitement and interest about Linwood. Linwood has been kind of the stepsister, the little sister of Bothell. Bothell is experiencing a lot of growth as well and was very popular during our recent boom as people who wanted to be on the Bellevue side of the lake couldn't afford Bellevue. They were spreading out north to Bothell and south to Newcastle and Renton as kind of the overflow zones of this very popular and very expensive area. As you get into Everett, Everett has another Boeing airplane manufacturing facility, another, I don't know if it's an international airport, but it is an airport that flies commercial flights, as well as, what are they called, like FedEx flights and things, passenger flights. There are small private hobby airfields. So Everett has, again, a lot of flight traffic. It has a naval base, and it tends to and it has a prison. So those types of things are there, which tend to make it, for some reason, just, I don't think any of those alone would tank the area, but it just seems like it isn't having as much appreciation as some of the other areas. And I have seen a little bit of homelessness issues here as well. On the outskirts, Snohomish is like a very quaint, it has a lot of antique stores, a lot of small business owners, freedom-loving people here. Monroe is where the county fair is. Well, actually, it's the Evergreen State Fair. The county fair is down here, more in Enumclaw. But Monroe, there's feed stores, there's people, we have friends with horses that live in Monroe. So if you're wanting to do like farming types of stuff here along Highway 203, Highway 9, Highway 2 out in this area, you're going to have a lot of birds of a feather. Lake Stevens and Granite Falls have really been growing again in the recent boom. Marysville is probably about as far out as you can go and still expect to be able to commute into Seattle, but it's quite a trek to get out there. On this side, to the left of Marysville is an Indian reservation, so you can't actually buy a lot of that land. Some of it is leasehold only. And then we have like Arlington, Stanwood, some of these lakes and islands out here, which are more bedroom communities, retirement communities, second home communities, that type of thing. So I would say Everett is probably the most affordable area around here. Maybe Mount Lake Terrace down here, and then Renton and this area around Burien here are some of the more affordable areas. So I hope that gives you something to think about. I actually do neighborhood by neighborhood reviews and tours of these areas that we're speaking of. So what I want you to do next is figure out, are you going for a luxury neighborhood? Are you going for a affordable neighborhood, or somewhere in between? I would say somewhere in betweens are kind of those bread and butter types of neighborhoods. They're still fairly expensive, but you're going to have good luck here in Shoreline, in Bothell, perhaps in Linwood. There are a couple neighborhoods in here: Briar, Lake Forest Park, Kenmore. Down here in Kirkland is very nice. It tends to get more expensive, and all of these are very expensive suburbs here. Down here, I would say Maple Valley, Newcastle are good options, and kind of here in this area by Kent, if you can find something that's affordable and that you like. So again, make sure you check out the corresponding other videos, my neighborhood tours and profiles, so you can get out on the streets, see what these places are like, and see which one is going to be best for you. Now, I am happy to help you, right? Like, I'm a real estate agent. I play matchmaker all the time. So if you're watching these videos and you like what you're seeing, but you feel that you need a little bit more help, or you like what you're seeing and you're ready to go look at homes, like, fantastic. Whatever you need, I'm here to educate. I believe in transparency. I believe in data. And I really just want to help you make the best decision. I know relocating to the area can be very stressful, very overwhelming. It can feel hard to know where to start. So really, these videos are designed to help you answer those questions. I hope you've enjoyed it. Put any questions you have in the box, or give me a phone call, send me a message on my website, and I'll look forward to talking with you soon. Take care.